Aloha! Welcome to the Art of Craig episode 1. Thank you for tuning in. So, I'm going to start off things with a simple color exercise I like to do. It's just focusing on colors, and my teacher called them poster studies. It's taking a simple flat brush that has no transparency, or it has some shape dynamics to it. This is Photoshop CC, so it's the more updated one, and there's a few things that you can get out of this. Actually, there's only one that I really take advantage of lately, and that's the color picker always being up. It's something that you couldn't do before, at least for this color picker in particular. I like it up because it's sort of how I would work if I was painting. I always get to have my palette available, and I can shift the colors around as if I was mixing them to some degree. It's a little bit different because I can't add a blue to an orange quite as easily, and it's made up for by going desaturated. So if I'm down in an orange hue, and I need to make it look like it has some blue in it, I can move it up to or move it down in its saturation, so it'll look like it has a little bit of blue to it. I always start these things out in the darks. Um, a big reason is when I start things out in the lighter values, when I go to judge the colors and relate them to each other, I never seem to go dark enough by the end of the painting. So it seems easier for me to start in the darks and work my way into the light. There was a painter who painted a lot of sci-fi stuff. I'm sure if you've been doing this stuff a while, you know or have heard of him. John Berkey painted a lot of space scenes, and he was so good at painting light, and that was exactly how he said he did it. All the interviews I've read of the guy, he said, I paint the light. That's how I do it. So that was, I never really understood it until I started doing this. Uh, you'll have these areas of dark, and you work your way into the light, and it's almost as if you're shining the flashlight or whatever your light source might be into these areas, and it's sort of a magic trick at the end of the day. You start to watch how the lights interact with those darks, and the light just wants to crawl into the dark areas and illuminate them. And a lot of times when I do start out this dark, I'll never go all the way to a black, and I think that's kind of a standard painting thing. Don't go all the way to black. So you save those for your accents and whatnot. But again, I'm not worried as much about the drawing stuff on this. It's more of an exercise in getting my colors right, and a lot of that has to do just with trying to stay sharp and on top of my game with that stuff. I'm a storyboard artist by day, so I don't work a whole lot with color, but I love to paint. So I guess my skill with it kind of fades when I haven't been doing it a lot. So these things help. I just try to match it as accurately as I can as I go throughout these paintings as to what I'm seeing. I wish I could share the photo, but I don't have the rights to this one, so I'm not going to show it. On the next video, I definitely will. It was just a learning mistake with making these videos. So here we go, working into the lights a little bit. You can start to see it pop and things start taking shape a little bit. And it's another one of those things too where you start watching the thing come together and it always baffles me how cool it is. I've never gotten bored of doing that. But I just try to relate first the I try to relate the value of where I'm at. The next thing I'll look at is the hue, what color it is compared to the last thing I painted, and then I go for the saturation. So how gray or how pure the color is. And that's pretty much all I'm doing the whole time. I try to look for areas where the color is changing. I try to keep it as broad as possible at first, so there'll be giant shapes. I got a little carried away in the cave there at first in retrospect there, but with the sand in particular here in the foreground and moving into the water, it's, well, let's see, it's 5 bands of color just going from the dry sand and into the water at the moment. So I'll go back in and break that up later, like I'm doing with the cliffs, and just keep adding stuff and breaking things up once I have it all laid in. So now the details start to come out, and getting the green of the foliage of the cliff coming down there. And a lot of that, again, just it goes to recognition of what something is. You start adding these things in, and the viewer can relate. So a lot of times I'll make a mark and I'll shift the colors around until it looks right. And again, I'm always just comparing one color next to the other color that I'm painting. And I'm constantly shifting around that color palette. So now I'm starting to break up the sand and the water here and trying to make that transition of the water onto the sand look like it's really happening. Water's always really fun to paint because it has so many properties to it. It's transparent, it's always moving, so it's kind of alive. You never know what it's going to be like, especially if you go down to the beach to paint. It can be really angry seas, or it can be pretty calm and mellow, and it's different to paint every time. If it's really wild, you're going to have a lot of sand moving around, and the water is not as transparent. It'll be more translucent. You can see the sand, so the sand moving in the water will have a lot more of an effect on the color. But that blue shows up in these Caribbean areas or warmer climates, or just when there's not as much garbage or sediment. That blue shows up, and I always end up looking this stuff up, and I looked it up a long time ago. It more stemmed from, why is the sky blue? So I don't like painting it just because I see it. And if it's something I'm going to encounter all the time, I try to go look it up. So you'll find out the ocean's blue because the red wavelengths are getting absorbed, and the blue wavelengths are left to reflect and bounce around. Now all these little details are coming into play, and the the water lapping onto the beach is starting to take shape. And again, it's that recognition, and these little details, they just kind of it didn't take a whole lot of the detail to let the viewer know what's going on here. And it's just those little things that tend to punch things up sometimes. I think I only graded one thing in this whole painting, and that's that little softness of the water running through that cave. I normally don't do that in these paintings. I normally just leave it, but if you zoomed in, it's still just solid color. I didn't use any brush blending or anything like that. These things are a fun way if you're going to do, I don't know, if you were doing research for something and you went and looked up islands or beach scenes or whatever, for the next Pirates of the Caribbean movie or something. If you do enough of these, you get used to how the light is reacting. You'll know, you can predict things a little bit more. So I like beach scenes and I like waves, and that's what I tend to paint a lot. And I like figures, so I'll do a bunch of videos with the figures as well. If there's anything that anybody would like to see, please leave a comment and let me know if I can do anything better. If there's anything you'd like to know, I'm happy to contact to contact you and send an email even. So crop the thing and kind of wrapping it up, adding little details here and there just to punch things up and make it look like a bit of a finished piece, and just kind of adding some dimension to the shapes that are back there, adding some color banding and breaking up just a few of the last shapes here. Again, it's just making sure your values and your hues and your saturation are solid. Don't worry about the drawing so much. Just isolate the color and you'll be on your way. Just want to say thank you for watching, and thank you for the support. I appreciate it. I look forward to doing a lot more of these, and hopefully I'll get a little bit better at it. But thank you for your support, and I'll catch you next time.